Good afternoon all. I am Professor Kirti Vinay Kumar. I welcome you all to National Conference on Science, Engineering, Management and Architecture 2020, hosted by the Oxford College of Engineering. As part of this event, the Oxford School of Architecture is proud to conduct a webinar by a well-known architect, Professor Satya Prakash Varanasi. It's my pleasure to welcome Architect Professor Satya sir. We are glad to have you, sir. He is a popular architect, public speaker, academician, urban designer, and a writer. He has also been involved in many other activities. A warm welcome to you, sir, once again. I also welcome Architect Professor Pranoti Nagaraj, who is our design chair, and also all the participants. Now I request Professor Pranoti Nagaraj to introduce Professor Satya sir. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kirti ma'am. So I welcome our guest speaker today, Architect Professor Satya Prakash Varanasi, Professor Kirti, who is Principal in Charge, those are faculty members, those are students and guests. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce Architect Professor Satya Prakash Varanasi, who is a keynote speaker of this session. He has been in academics teaching architecture, urban design, conservation and sustainability for more than 3 decades. Currently, he is a professor at KS School of Architecture, Bengaluru. Besides this, he is equally involved with freelance writing, events, public talks. You can see his YouTube videos on TEDx and Disha Forum. He is equally involved in INTAC and NGO activities. His design firm is known as Satya Consultants, and he works on cost-effective, culturally appropriate and eco-friendly architecture, exploring varied design alternatives. He is one of the few architects who has been practicing architecture which respects its environment, includes vernacular ideas and local materials. His work is a contemporary phase of traditional Indian architecture and has evolved to suit the world today. I must go through some of his articles which was published in Hindu on their Saturday column titled Habitat, Property Plus. So his thoughtful writings, just few glimpses. Some of his articles like Designing in Tune with Nature, Is Your House Ecologic, Common Sense Architecture. He writes that whether your house is ecologic means we have millions of buildings and we are going to build millions more. But let's imagine that 75% of building will get demolished during the next 200 years. So wonder where all the debris would go. It sounds absurd, but when we think how every shelter, every other animal makes, it returns to nature. But what humans consume, it cannot be returned to nature. Not all. If we consider the waste materials which comes from the construction activities. So we actually build to carry the load. Now again, few lines from his article, like considering the current situation. Thought-provoking writings on COVID-19. With COVID-19 impacting the world economy and bringing in frugality, builders may no longer splurge on fancy facades or mindless energy consumption. Every material ultimately comes from natural resources which we are simply wasting with disregard to the needs of hungry millions and bleak predictions of extinction. So he also says that even construction is a killer, not only the COVID-19 virus. And it is the time we change our lifestyle forever with eco-friendly architecture and lowering our carbon footprint for living. So I suggest to students to see his videos and writings which are widely available on net.
An email from the webinar. Just names on the occasion. Thank you, Pranati. Incidentally, this is not so much for you both, nor is it for Harshavardhan Jatkar sir or Gurudat sir or anybody. So this is actually what I'm going to present is, Sir Jatkar sir, Harshavardhan. See, what I'm going to present is actually very basic. This is, it's not even made for the students who are already doing well in their education. It's for students who were the way I was when I was a student. I know in the introduction she mentioned one architecture degree from India, from Bangalore, and then Masters Urban Design SPA. I have one more degree from England. But my dear young friends sitting here and listening now, not that you should follow my path in academics. I was a below average student through and through. And the master's degree was also no great performance. I'll just keep the screen shared, then I'll talk this general introduction part. It's also a way to test. Is it coming? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's clear. Okay. So the whole thing, the idea was to share the concerns of a rather below average. No, I was not even average. I was below average. A below average student, and you know what a below average student goes through in architecture, in masters, and even when I got selected for the masters, it was again not a very great performance there. I was below average everywhere. So in a way, this presentation is sharing of my own experiences, and mainly aimed at students who possibly are struggling. Struggling not in the final year level, struggling in the first year, second year, third year level. Because very often we have this kind of a struggle which we end up going through. Primarily, that's what I'm going to do. And you can see here, ma'am has already mentioned, those who want to know a little more about what one has done, thought, etc. There are a couple of links here, but she mentioned about the articles I wrote for the Hindu. For the about 10 years I wrote, and my office is a very small firm. It's not a very big firm, but we mainly work with natural materials and alternatives and exploring ideas. And I have an associate, Deepa Rani, who manages the office. So I get some time for academics and writing and other things. And the team in the office manage most of the issues, but we have a larger approach, yes. The overall structuring of this presentation is in 4 parts. Thanks to Kirti and to Pranati ma'am, who gave some advices about what could be done. So one, we said, let us keep it very, very student focused. So my request to you all, as I'm talking itself, I'm again requesting you all, send your whatever one feels like, ideas, suggestions, experiences, questions, even answers in the chat box. I really don't intend to go on this like a webinar. We started at 2:10. At least I started at 2:10. So the idea is not really to go on a long, boring lecture. So the word I've been using is not webinar, it's webilog. It's a dialogue in webinar. So don't wait for a so-called question answer session. You may be disappointed. There may not be any. So it's better to post anything that comes to the mind right away. Start right away. Long monologue lecture. I'll be rather brief on the slides. It's in 4 parts. The first part talks about, now let me make it enlarge it. and then go to the next. Okay. The first part is one way to understand architecture. And all these, there are various definitions of architecture. One is not going into it. By the time you join architecture, you would have at least heard of a dozen definitions of architecture. So these are different way of looking at it. The second part looks at some of the context, systemic problems, imperatives that we have to go through if you are joining architecture. See, the very title says first year and beyond. So it starts with the first year. So what happens to us, and I still remember the day when I joined architecture and how lost I was, how terrible I was. I was frustrated, went through inferiority complexes and whatnot in those days. So the first part looks at why do we go through it, very briefly. Again, you see in a 1 hour webinar, 1.5 hours, including discussion or whatever, we can't cover everything. So it is rather brief. Everything is tip of the iceberg kind of ideas only. So second part will briefly talk about why do we go through what we are going through when we join architecture. The third part, I won't really say solution, but some ideas about what can be done about it. And the last part, there are about another 20 last, about this whole thing is only about 50 slides. It's not a very large number for the whole lot. And the last part, another 20 slides, which gives an idea of the kind of architecture that we are designing, the kind of buildings we are designing. Architecture is an abbreviation of architecture. Before I enlarge, let me enlarge it anyway, because that's the only way to see it better. Yeah, it came. So A for aesthetics. In other words, aesthetics. This particular photograph is the INTAC, Indian National Trust for Art and Culture Heritage INTAC office in Leh Ladakh of the Ladakhi architecture. The proportions, the materiality are for region. And the moment you look at it, you can see and make out this cannot be in Kanyakumari. This may not even be in Karnataka. Look at the roof, look at the kind of fenestration, look at the kind of material. It's in Ladakh again. It's in Leh area, in and around Leh. So the architecture evolved from region. C for culture, ARC, C for culture. Look at this group of people sitting here. This is a particular monastery where an annual, very, very famous monastery festival happens around. And you can see a whole lot of Indians, foreigners, the Buddhist monks all sitting together. But imagine designing for these people. We cannot have the same design for every one of these. The same cannot work for everyone. It has to be separate, each individually worked out. So when we refer to architecture, A for aesthetics, R for region, C for culture, H for history. This is a 350-year-old as per the records they gave me. Actually more than 300, so I assumed it could be up to 350. It's a more than a 300-year-old house where people still live in Leh town, in the town of Leh. An amazing architecture, real experiences I have in my life is having walked into this house. I'm sorry the photo is not very good. It was completely dark. I had to take a flash. It didn't come out well. Look at the way the small open well, there is a little cutte outside. The support systems, stone slabs, the wall there, and the way haze is stacked around, everything. And there is also some butti there, the woven butti is there. You can see the grinding stone on the other side. Now, see, for any of these alphabets, you can add many more words. So A can be for aesthetics, it can be for art, it can be for amalgamation of a whole lot of thoughts coming around. R can be for religion, R can be for reuse, R can be for redo. Some students would really look into the word R. So R can be many of them. Likewise, C can be also many more. I is for idea. Now, see, one could have shown you some very good looking, attractive architecture. Sorry, my friends, I didn't want to. Architecture does not lie only in iconic buildings. Architecture does not lie only in the so-called award-winning, published, the much talked about buildings. That is a hype which has been created. Architecture lies in our everyday life. Unfortunately, we have taken that notion away. I'm not trying to say architecture does not lie in the grand, in the lavish, in the luxurious, in the so-called designed. It of course lies there. But architecture also lies in the undesigned, in the ordinary. One was talking about the fact that when I'm joining architecture, I would have joined architecture from the normal, humble, undesigned, non-designed, say whatever it is, kind of a context. And not everything around would not have been in a way designed as such. So when I come to architecture, suddenly everything is well designed, everything is so classy, and everything is so precise. So immediately what happens is one gets lost somewhere. One is not able to understand what is happening around. I'm not saying this would have happened with most of you. Maybe you all have come from very urban context. You knew what design is. You knew what good design is. Maybe you knew the fundamentals of appreciation, art appreciation, aesthetics, but I didn't have that. T for technology. T again can be used for many other words, but I'm using the word technology. So T can be for techniques, T can be for time. Time, of course, the word comes a little later. So every one of these alphabets can be expanded. And I remember in one of the actual seminar, not this webinar, actual seminar we did in a college, we kept on asking the students, please contribute. And there was a blackboard, luckily. So one kept on writing. And across these 12 alphabets of architecture, we could list out some 40, 50 words, which were the constituents of architecture. So all that architecture embodies, most of what architecture embodies is there in these 12 alphabets as an abbreviation. Now look at the simple technology. Most of the photographs that you are seeing here are taken either in Ladakh village, in Ladakh area, or in a smaller village in Karnataka. So the simple stone, look at it, it's not even stone column, it's stone slab kept as a column. All of irregular levels. They're patched up by putting some other stone here and there to get the levels. Mud wall, even the mud wall is uneven, mud plastering. So, but this was the technology adopted for creating this house, which is now no more there. It has collapsed for various reasons. So the point is, are we able to see technology even in this? Or do we say technology is only what Frank Gehry does and Hadid does? Is that how we look at it? Each one of us can take our worldview. So there is a technology also in a collapsing village house. And the moment we realize it, something wonderful happens. We start seeing architecture everywhere. And it's a little interesting to say, I remember in the heydays of the cricket fever and all, they say, watch cricket, drink cricket, eat cricket, sleep cricket. Some of you might have heard of such statements. So the whole idea of money, economics, finances, budget, it applies in a very, very big way to architecture. And C for climate, one of the most important. We all are now aware climate change is here very much. And there are people who are coming with doomsday predictions saying that human race is going to be extinct in the next near future. We are already at 1.1 degree warmer than what it was during the pre-industrial time. And if world becomes 2 degree warmer, which initially they said will happen by 2100, now they are saying we will be 2 degree warmer by 2050. In another 30 years, we could be 2 degree warmer. If that happens, then by 2100, we could be up to 4 degree warmer. And if it is up to 4 degree warmer in terms of global climate warming, and half the world will not be alive. Forget Corona. Corona comes and goes. But climate change will not come and go like this. Corona will find a vaccine. Climate change vaccine is within us. We all have to see how to live a life of simplicity, purchase less, waste less, use and use and use and reuse everything as long as we can, travel less. Not because we don't have money. We may have the money. We may have the money. But the time has now come to live a simpler life despite having money. Otherwise, the human Homo sapiens will not be there in a couple of generations down the line. It's not what I am saying. Scientists are saying it, researchers are saying it. Climate is most important. But when it comes to architecture as a design in architecture schools, climate influences our design a lot. Ideally speaking, we should not design the building the same way, whether it is in Kanyakumari or in Kashmir, whether it is in Karnataka or whether it is in some Timbuktu. Context is important. So C also can be for context. C is also for culture. C is also for construction. So the alphabet C is a fantastic alphabet in the word architecture. We need to know. So all of them have to be embodied in the design. T for time. Time changes, of course, we all know it. So, and the slide represents the time gone by. There's an old gate of the village. 2 of them are still lying there. Most of it is gone. Time passes by. And this famous reference about space and time in architecture. We may some other day will discuss that time and space in architecture. But how time becomes a part of architecture is something very important. It's slightly deep to understand in the very first year, second year, third year level, but over the time we will be able to. See, I said this whole presentation has been kept basically at a basic level. And I am not really trying to discuss in a big way complex issues of architecture education. For example, how does experience come in? What role memory plays? How do we absorb what we observe? What is the process between observation and absorption? What do we mean by motivation, inspiration? We can look into them. Let us see, but I'm not trying to say, right away, I'm not trying to say we will look into it. If any of you post it in your chat boxes, and if you want to take up any of these discussions, please start sharing your thoughts. It will also be provoking every one of us to think. End of the day, what we need? One of the reasons why I come on these webinars and all, when I was an average student and somehow didn't drown in the ocean of architecture and somehow survived. And I wish everyone out there, everyone who thinks they're below average, who thinks they're not good enough, also should do well in life.
Yeah, I think they can start writing questions. Those who have anything to be asked, they can start typing in chat box. Yeah.
Yes, please do. So U for users, utility. And the last but one word R for resources. Again, it connects to climate change and architecture, as we all know, construction industry at large of CO2 emission and the greenhouse gas emissions. Cement alone, there are 4 villain materials: steel, cement, glass, and aluminum. Cement alone releases 8% of the carbon emission annually into the atmosphere from the world. Cement alone, one material. And we all use cement left and right. Imagine what contribution we are giving to nature. So we got to be, but it doesn't mean, okay, we'll stop architecture profession, I'll go and do a panwala. I'm not trying to say that. Buildings are needed, shelter making is needed. But can I be aware of it and be sensitive and try to design such that minimize on resources, minimize on embodied energy. We'll come back to this later. R for resources. You can see here a village house done completely with mud blocks. You can see they're all adobe blocks. They're all adobe blocks, mud just put together, and it's in that Himalayan region somewhere. It is available to these village people. Whoever have built it here was only what you can see here. They didn't have more expertise, no money. But look at the roofing. They were using coconut leaves, and it is to, as you know, sometimes it's not dangerous, it's dangerous and doesn't last long. and then they start using sheet roof on there they put. So in their own way they picked up their expertise. So in other words, these ARCHITECTURE, it virtually contains dozens and dozens of constituent elements, embodied aspects of architecture. So if we can, today we don't have time, but if we can make a list of those 40, 50, 60, 70 words from this, we would have a checklist of what to study in architecture. And then we can say whether I have studied it or not. Tick, 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 tick. Simple jobs. Okay, part 2. School of Architecture to me is very important. I personally believe we learn a lot in the school. I have heard many people saying, oh, no, when we went for our practical training, we learned. When you left the school, we learned it in the, sorry. If one had not got the school education, what learning happened outside would not have happened. Pranoti, is there any inquiry till now? Has anybody posted anything?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Okay,
No.
I'll carry on then.
Yeah.
So if because we go through the college, it gives us the foundation, it gives us the frame of reference, we are able to learn outside. But yes, we can also learn without the architecture. If you look at, where was architecture program earlier? Even in, when I joined architecture, Harshavardhan sir sitting here with us is even older than me. When I joined architecture, there were only 12 schools of architecture in whole of India. Only 12 schools. That's all we had in India when I joined architecture. So, it's a recent profession, as we all know. So it doesn't mean we should question the role of the school. School has a major role to play. But yes, there are many things we can also learn outside the school. We'll come to that shortly. Now, there are a few more slides to very briefly summarizing. I've just put together only four thoughts here. Why we go through what we are going through, the struggle. So School of Architecture is important, but we still struggle to learn architecture. Why do we struggle to learn architecture? There are 4 of them. So the impact of school education, dilution of intuition, unfamiliarity of design education, and dependency of simulation. I'll come to each one very briefly.
Yes, sir.
What happens to
I have
all
a
of us when
question.
we're in the 11th and 12th?
Excuse me, sir, there is a question for you. Can I ask you?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So I think Harshita is
Of course.
asking, sir, what skill has served you best in your architecture career, and what is your design philosophy?
Can we come to it later on? It will come. Harshita,
Sure.
I'll answer you later on.
Sure, sir.
This is already there.
Okay.
I'll make a note of it here. So
I will
it
remind you.
says, yeah, you also remind me.
Yes.
It's about my skills and our office design philosophy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now look at this. Typically what happens in Karnataka, we call it as a PUC, and elsewhere 11th and 12th. Typically what happens? The school teachers give us a whole lot of instructions saying, do this, notes, labs, everything is there. And of course, the parental pressure is anyway there on us. And most of us end up taking tuitions, and there's a big tension for us. Why have I put these 3 words? Tensions, tuitions, instructions. Because to me, this virtually embodies what an average typical student goes through in an urban setup like Bangalore in their 11th and 12th. Of course, they had a life beyond this, I don't deny that. And you know what this does? This is catastrophic. What this does is it takes away our impulses, instincts, and intuitions. Look at this. Every animal knows how to create a shelter, and we are humans, animals. Every human being knows how to create a shelter and how to take care of one's own safety and security. And if we say shelter making is designing, because as long as I'm just sitting under a tree or walking into a cave, I'm not making a shelter. But the moment I'm making a shelter, there's an act of designing happening around. There's an act of intervention happening around, right? So that is designing. So in a way, designing is a human impulse, shelter making is an animal instinct, but we still struggle. Mostly because in the 11th and 12th, due to various academic reasons, I don't want to go much into it. There is a very famous book by Ivan Illich called Deschooling Society. But whatever it is, the schooling system we all nowadays go through somehow takes away the natural impulses, instincts, and intuitions we have in us. we tend to depend on textbooks. We tend to depend on coaching classes. We tend to depend on what others tell us. So when we join architecture, we would have, at least some of us would have partly lost our own inner capabilities of looking around and learning. A smaller point I already said, there's a huge disconnect from 11th to 12th to architecture. In two ways. The disconnect happens in two ways. So one, so no subject. See, look at the subjects we study in our 11th and 12th. And second one, I already said, I would not have seen maybe as many designer contexts around me. Even if I have been born in Mysore, Bangalore, as a typical 11th, 12th standard PUC boy, I don't think I would have bothered to really look at design in what I'm looking around. I just lived a normal teenage life. So there's a disconnect there when I come to architecture, but more than that is this. The science combination, look at any subject, BA, BCom, medicine, engineering, most of the subjects that we can take up after our PUC, there will be at least some subject continuing, not in architecture. So it's a total break from what we've been studying and what we are supposed to study. So we struggle. Besides, most of us do not know what we call as the art appreciation. There is no course on art appreciation or design definitions, etc. in the 11th and 12th. We don't have anything. So typically we struggle as we join architecture. Now, another disconnect, equally important. If I were to do acting, I'll go to a person and she would act and show me, and she will make me act the way she wants me to act, and then say, no, this is not good, not good, not good. Your facial expression was rather shallow. Come on, deep expression, deep expression. So she'll make me act. She will also act, I will also act. If I'm a painter, the painter paints, my teacher paints, I also paint. If I'm singing, my teacher sings, I also sing. If I'm learning dancing, the teacher dances, I also dance. Now look at the paradox of architecture education. Now, architecture is taught largely by teaching. My dear young friends, this is not to put a blame on me or anybody, it's a systemic problem. I am also a so-called teacher. I am also a so-called student. But then this is what's happening in our profession. You can see there are 7 lines written. I'll read out a few of them because see, also when you record everything, if the vocal part is not there, sometimes missing. So I'm just reading out some of these. Designing is taught by drafting, not by implementing. We don't really build our designs, right? We can't. We are students. How can we build? Construction is taught by sheets and plates, not by building it. History is taught by sketching, not by living it. Here, yes, to some extent we can say I'm living history. I can say so to some extent.
Yeah, sir, can I interrupt you? Sir, can I interrupt
please.
you? So there are 2 questions.
Very nice, very nice.
So the first question is from Dhriti. She is asking, sir, how does architecture connect to engineering? And the second
very good question. Yes, Dhriti.
And the second question is by Ragul. Yeah. He or she asks whether architecture is better than civil engineering.
Well. If I were to ask you, is gulab jamun better than jalebi? What answer you would give? So you will say, if you love gulab jamun, you will say gulab jamun is better than jalebi, isn't it? So the idea of what is better depends on the person. It's on ourselves. We need to design, we need to look at, and also we can pick a question of this, architecture or civil better. So we need to decide what is better for us individually. And to do that, we need to think, what am I cut out for? I'll go back to the earlier question very briefly about the skill sets. I think it's connected here now. See, during my architecture education through and through, Indian masters, abroad masters in architecture, I realized, though I had a lot of inferiority complexes, somewhere we realized there are some strengths. one could talk. Not in English initially. I struggled to learn English. I couldn't speak in English because I'm born in a village in a Kannada medium background. But over the years, you learn how to speak English. So one learned to speak. But more than that, my strength was I could think. I could think, I could talk, I could communicate. So this really helping about everything around you. So thinking is one of the most fundamental skill needed. You know, if someone can draft but not do anything else, may do well but may suffer. If somebody can make good models but nothing else, may suffer or may do well. If somebody has contacts, may do well, but if the designs are not good, may suffer. But if you can think, nothing like that. Nothing like the skill of thinking. Try to inculcate. There are a lot of methods for thinking. There are whole courses available on thinking. As to, unfortunately, including the school where I teach, there is no course on thinking. Edward de Bono, internationally known for his thinking courses. There are lots and lots of books on thinking and creativity. Unfortunately, we don't find those books in the architecture libraries. I've been to not less than 50 schools of architecture across India, and most of them do not stockpile books on thinking. Council of Architecture also does not insist. Our syllabus does not insist. We only talk of textbooks. So my skill sets in those days were the capability of thinking and talking and communicating, and then you observe, you think, and you carry on. The design philosophy, I'll come back to later on. You'll show this. You'll see the slides. Coming back to the
so there's one more question. Sir, can I interrupt you?
No, just take the other one.
Pranuti,
architecture and engineering.
Yes, sir. And then I think there are questions coming up. More questions coming up. So can I tell you later, or I can read now?
I will just answer the earlier question. Architecture and engineering.
Yeah, sure.
See, every program, every course has its own imperatives. Architecture is primarily, as we all know by this time, is more about thinking, imagining, observing, designing, and suggesting. Engineering is also there. Engineering also needs to observe and think and develop and do R&D. But engineering, by definition, the way I am looking at it, engineering is more of doing. Of course, as I said, R&D is everywhere. Architecture to me is more of thinking. Okay. It may not be the best definition. This is my definition. Okay. I'll just finish this list and then we'll go to the next one.
Sure, sir.
I'll finish this slide.
Yeah.
So what we notice in architecture is history is taught. As I said, we can live history. Yes, we can walk into historic buildings, document it, and some of us could be ourselves living in a historic building, in a house. So fair enough. Structure is taught by calculations, not by constructing it. Theories are taught by analysis, not by applying them. Coincidentally, kind of an indirect answer for our office practice. In our office practice, there's a lots of theory of architecture applied in our designs. Because I'm basically an academician. And the office also grew up as if it's an office run by a teacher. So a whole lot of theories are there in the architecture. So we try to apply. But in a college, in a school, sorry, we are not able to apply it immediately. Even if you apply, we only draft it. So we are not able to visualize. We are not experience the buildings we are designing. We can't walk into the designs we are building, we are designing, isn't it? Urban design is taught by books, not by experiencing it. Services are taught by observing, not by installing them. So the list can go on. So these are the major issues why we tend to struggle to learn architecture as such. Yes, Pranuti, now we'll take a few more questions. That's the end of the second part.
Yeah.
Trying to understand. So my friends, we have generally looked at what are the constituent elements of architecture by ARCHI. And I'm requesting you all, you please add your keywords under each of those alphabets. Second part, we're trying to see why are we struggling in the first year, second year, third year. Then we somehow cope up and we manage. Now we'll come to the third part. Before that, Pranuti. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Can I read the question?
Of course.
Yeah. So I think this is by architect Anne Robin. So she's asking, what style of architecture you prefer in your design? And what style of architecture do you think will be incorporated in future, vernacular or contemporary?
Well, as on our office, right from the beginning, right? We are now 27 years, 93, 94, we started in Bangalore. I was not one of those early starters in life. When my so-called firm began, I was already 34-year-old. But then the fact that one had seen around, traveled around, did masters, worked on site, before I started my office, I had already written articles, given seminars, did tutoring in the classes. So that became a very solid base. So one of my requests to everybody is that don't jump into starting an office, but start with a solid foundation, explore, well, be a gypsy if you can. Take gap years, GAP gap years if you can, and be a gypsy, and then start. So by the time one started, climate change was, I hadn't heard of it, but it was there abroad already being discussed. 1992, December, I came back to Bangalore, and one of the most famous Rio de Janeiro conference, as we call it, the Rio conference, happened in 1992, the year I returned to Bangalore, before I came. But I wasn't much aware of the crisis. That's some idea. So somehow from beginning, we started working with natural materials, and we continue to do that. We are not into the mainstream architecture at all, as you will see the slides at the later part. So we work with nature, we work with culture, we work with cost efficiency, we work with natural air, light, heat, all of them we work with. And we work with people. We are very heavy into dialoguing with our clients. We spend lots and lots of time talking to them. Sometimes they sketch with me, we sketch with them. We make them see our houses, they tell us what they like. So our architecture is basically evolved, the design evolves from dialoguing. And I even call it as an approach, I call it as design by dialoguing. Any more? Pranoti?
Yeah, sir. Sir, there are few more. One
Yes.
interesting question by Sapna. She's asking, how do we know whether we are good designers?
Sapna is a student?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. Sapna, suppose if you walk into a stage and you dance, and you're a good dancer, and somebody comes and asks you, Sapna, how have you danced today? What answer you would give? Can you suddenly say, wow, Satya sir, today mine was the best dance ever? It's very difficult for us to say, isn't it? So what we do, we cannot say, others have to say. But you see, when we work with people, like Laurie Baker did, so when you work with people, and if they're happy in their houses, or in the school, or wherever they are, you know that you're a good designer. Good design is not being, designing these award-winning projects alone. It need not be that. Good design is not that. I mean, okay, it's also good design. All the famous projects that we see in the websites and internet and everywhere is also good design. But good design is not just that. Good design, one second, I'm also making my notes, just famous buildings. Good design is performance. Good design is perception. If somebody can walk into a structure, you do. It even can be a roadside darshini. But if they feel good inside, so if they can feel good inside, that is good design. If somebody can feel good in your design, that is good design. The way I'm looking at it. Good design is that which performs. Performance is important. Good design is that which is well perceived, perception. And if someone can perceive it well, automatically there'll also be good experience. So performance, perception, experience, and feel good. They all are part of good design. Right? And this, as we just now discussed, others will tell you, Sapna, one day, whether it's good or not. Yes, Pranav.
Yeah. So I think that answers the question of even Dhriti. Her question is similar, like how do we assess ourselves as complete designers? So I think that is very much similar to what
Well,
Sapna
for
has
that,
asked.
there is, yeah.
So there's one.
also another thing called skill
Yeah,
sets.
so
No, I'll
many
just finish it.
coming
now.
up.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm very happy, Pranoti. You seem to have very active participation of students. Keep it up.
Yeah.
At Oxford, you have encouraged students' participation.
So can I read out one more?
No, I'll just finish the earlier one. What
Finish.
you
Okay.
said.
Fine.
When
Yeah.
you say we are designer, You know what I have been advising to my students is to evolve what I'm calling as a skill set evaluation. It is there written down later in the PPT, but I'll just say it later on. I will not repeat it. So make a list of all the skill sets that we need in life: sketching, drafting, talking, communicating, group work, observing, theorizing, touring, essentializing, speaking, uh, presentations, model making, software skills, the philosophizing, name it, name it, name it, name it, name it. And again, that checklist can be around 30, 40, 50 words can be there in that. Coordination, management, troubleshooting, planning, there are many of them, all right? So make a list of all that which we need to live by. Make a list, and in the beginning of semester, how I was, tick, maybe 2 tick marks. End of semester, have I improved in debating, public debate? If I have improved, I'll put 3 tick mark. If I have not improved, 1 tick mark. Sketching, have I improved across semester? Every semester, if we can do this personal skill set evaluation before and after with some 30, 40 skill sets, I tell you, you will pick up, because it is an acts like a checklist. Yes, Pranati, go to the next one.
Yeah, so there is another question, like Adesh is asking, sir, why do drafting exercises are taught to us?
There's a word which will come a little later on, but anyway, since the question has come, I'll answer right away. Mind, body, hand coordination. Drafting is not merely drawing a line using fingers and pencil. No. Drafting is a neuromechanical action which is intrigued, which is communicated by the neurological impulses which come in the brain by the chemical actions of the brain. The chemical actions of the brain are invoked by the kind of observation, analysis, absorption which happens in the mind. And if we are good in this observation, absorption, analysis happening in the mind starts to think. When the mind wants to think, it is able to imagine. And when the mind can imagine, only we can design. So hand becomes one of the tool to promote the brain activity. When we don't really look for this mind, body, hand coordination, if you think a software can do it for you, it's as good as saying that tomorrow anything can be done by software. My young friends, software is a mirage. The Western culture, civilization is already going through a whole lot of problems because of softwares. We are already going through in India. In my generation, I have seen it. You may not feel it. You are all the millennials, but still keep software at some control. Okay, next, Pranati.
Yeah, and the next question by Pearl Lobo. She is asking some controversial about people, those who practice architecture without tag of being architect. So what's your take on that? Means the individuals who design, but they are not architects.
Yeah.
So,
architecture. I'll bring in another one or other words. Let's use the word curing, medicine. Okay, healing and curing. Should only doctors do curing and healing, or can anybody do curing and healing? Anybody can, we know that. Doctors also can, of course. Now, what is architecture? Architecture is primarily an act of creating shelter. And what do we need architecture for? Architecture, we need building. Let me use the word house. We need a house mainly for 3 or 4 purposes. One is for storage, one is for safety, one is for psychology, and one is for space and usages. Now, as long as one can create them, the way I look at it, there is architecture. See, my way of looking at architecture could be a little controversial, just the way this question itself can be. I don't look at the grand, award-winning, iconic, pioneering architects only as architects. Even somebody who does a cowshed in a village, if it's well done, I see architecture there. That's how I look at it. So, if an ordinary villager can design a good cowshed at a lower cost, longer maintenance, life cycle, good performance, and good looking, simple, local, there is architecture there. Is he an architect? He may not be an architect by degree, but he is involved in architecture. Architecture is a phenomenon. Architect is a graduate. architects may or may not be able to create architecture. Many architects, sorry to say, may or may not be able to create good architecture. But if we say architecture is a phenomenon, everybody can create it. Now, again, this architecture as a phenomenon is not adequately taught in our schools. We still teach architecture as a subject. So architecture as a subject, it is taught. But as a phenomenon, it is not taught adequately. I'm not trying to say it is not at all. It is taught, but very peripheral. Is that okay to say so? The next question.
So I think Soumya is asking, how do we incorporate basic traditional construction technique with the depleting workmanship in today's scenario in urban context?
Well, yes, these problems are happening. Is as good as saying, with the depletion of traditional cooking techniques. Now, most of us in our houses don't know how to cook our traditional, our community or so in a way, construction and cooking skills both are diluting. So I'm just saying it in a joking way, but this is up to us end of the day. Now there is a re-emphasizing happened way back in 25, 27 years ago when I started. There were only handful of us, like Vernach was there, Bayum, BCIL, a few others were there like us, and now there are many more starting. In the last 4 or 5 years, topic response, mud hands, made in earth, mind body, or whatever it's called. I have been hearing a couple of firms which have started in Bangalore alone, and all over India now, more and more firms are starting working with eco-friendly architecture and local architecture. I have a list of more than 100 architects I've just listed recently for some purpose. I can see Manjeet Singh has raised the hand. So more than 100 firms I have listed recently who are exploring ecological, sensitive local architecture. There is a future there. I believe so.
Yes.
Yes, Manjeet.
Sir, my question is that
You raised your hand.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the way sir you say that we have to like that. But I ask a question which is sent by the Pranoti Nagaraj ma'am. My question is that which way is good to brainstorming about design by hand or by using software to explain design, exploring designing, or because
coordinate with people with whom we never interact, everything online, everything mobile. Is that the way? Is it possible? We have to be with the people. We have to be. So the major problem I have with internet generation, it is not with local people, it's not with society. But then we have to design for them. And how to design for them if you don't know how to deal with them? So in a way, dealing with people is knowing how to design for people. If you don't do that, somewhere we lose out. Well, hopefully, any one of us, if you can get the maturity beyond the teenage, and the maturity. I'm not saying all of us can suddenly do that. We are biologically teenagers, but by the time we join architecture, we are in the post-teenage stage. So I think, so that way we can expect some not fully, partly, up to 19, 17, 18, 19, 20. It is halfway through. So if we can get the maturity, it will help a lot. But this is something which is individualistic, family upbringing, peer group, and most important, reading the books is reading the minds. Somebody was asking what was my skill sets. Luckily, I was a voracious reader. You can read anything. You can read trash, you can read novels, you can read political discourses. But then what is originality? Antonio Gaudi said, originality is going back to the origins. Go back to the origin. That is originality. Originality is not doing something others have not done. You pick it up, improve it, make it better, make it yours. Originality. And likewise, creativity. Again, creativity is not doing something nobody has done. No, sorry. And if you do that, very often creativity will be out of context. it will be misfit. No, creativity is context. It should come from the context itself. And lateral thinking, I already mentioned about thinking approach. Now, these are some of the general approaches which may or may not be taught in the schools of architecture.
Hello?
Pranoti, can we take one or two questions? Learn all the basics of theory: scale, proportion, size, skylights, materiality, texture, projected plane, recessed plane, massing, volume, porosity, glass, reflection, light, everything. Stand in front of every building, observe, 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 view, and then review. Much can be learned by all that. Space, place, distance, another approach to learn architecture. I'm walking down the street. There's a tree I can see, stand. Let me think whether it is 10 meters away or 25 meters away. I see an electric pole. Let me think whether it is 5 meters away or whether it's 8 meters away. And then walk, pace it. Understand the idea of distance. That gives idea of the place. And with them, we understand the idea of the space. Criteria study, not only case study. When we finally have to design a building, what is important is what are the criteria with which we design a building. Should the entrance be this way? Should the courtyard be that way? All these are criteria. So span, material, I've already mentioned some of these ones. What is, for example, if there is a building to be entered, it needs a sense of entry, let us say. The sense of entry for a railway station cannot be same as an art gallery, cannot be same as an architecture school, cannot be same as a house, cannot be same as a factory. So if there are 5 buildings we are looking at, what should be the sense of entry in these 5 buildings? They all are separate. They all have an entrance, but they all are separate. So each building we should be able to define the criteria. Again, here we can make a list of 30, 40, 50 criteria, design parameters. And the last one, skill set evaluation, I've already mentioned earlier. Make a set for, let us make a set for ourselves. Method, learning from nature. We can analyze. One of the standard things I do in my first semester classes, we carry coconuts, we carry cucumbers, we carry tomatoes, flowers, whatever. And we ask students to analyze natural forms. Before you and I are going to become architects, nature has been architect. Nature has been designing. How does nature design? Why is a coconut in the form of a shape of a coconut? What are the materials? Why is it designed that way? Everything has a logic. The logic of design in nature is wonderful. Then, from real to the abstract. When we join architecture, first year, second year, abstraction, the mind cannot absorb it immediately. It takes quite some time to understand absorption of this abstraction. Very difficult. So what I tell my students and what we do is, what is there in front of us? Let's look at it. That's real, measurable, tangible, obvious. From that, then think of abstraction. So abstraction is not something to be learned. Abstraction is something to be interpreted. It is very difficult to learn abstraction. Look at all the programs we have. What we do in the first year, very often we don't know what would we get in third year, because abstraction is taught. So learning abstraction should happen by interpretation. Next, reverse the subject. Of course, it's a very simple one. If I'm looking at one of my standard question here is one of the, anything that comes, reverse it, reverse it, reverse it. If you're looking at how many legs a chair has, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So how many stools, how many chairs a leg has? Nobody can answer it, I know, but I ask this question very often. I mean, there is an answer of different kind. So there are many things like this. For example, we say we are studying building construction, or should we study construction of a building? It makes a difference. Building construction sounds like a subject. Construction of a building looks like a skill, looks like a knowledge. I hope you all can see the difference. So reversing a statement has a lot of interesting lateral thinking. Incidentally, it's also part of lateral thinking. Pocket ideas on the move. Well, when I say pocket ideas on the move, it's a pun. So wherever we are going, whatever you are seeing, anything interesting, just make a note. Carry a small pocket notebook, carry a little book, or if one makes notes in the mobile phone, doesn't matter. But any idea, any thought, any material, any proportion, any architect's name, any project reference, any magazine reference, anything that comes across, immediately make a note, make a note, make a note. It is impossible to remember everything later. And body, mind, hand coordination I've already explained. Einstein, who said imagination is more important than knowledge. And I'm saying empathy is even more important than knowledge, imagination. If you have to, this is again more for the senior students, passing out students. If you have to succeed as architects in the society, however great imagination we have, sometimes we are not able to convince the people. But the moment we connect with them, they agree to us. How do we connect with them? We need to have empathy with them. If we can empathize, not sympathize, empathize. If we can empathize with the clients, they agree to us much more. Imagination is important, but empathy is more important. And empathy is also important between a faculty and a student, student and a faculty. Everywhere it's important, between parents and children, everywhere. Now I'm just, last part. So if there are any more questions, I can take it. Then I'll just run through some visuals. I'm already an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 20 minutes into it already.
Yeah,
Yes,
there
please.
are, yeah, sir, there are few questions. Can we take it after your presentation?
Okay, if you want to do that way, then I'll just run through it. A couple of design principles. One is cost, culture, climate. Whatever we do should be cost conscious, climatically appropriate, and culturally conforming. This is another set of principles we write down here, letting the building breathe, air, light, space. Minimizing, that is more for ecology. Minimizing manufactured materials, that is for sustainability related issues, because manufactured materials have very, very high embodied energy. And also they create a lot of waste, and I won't go into that. Beauty by materiality, that is to talk about the aesthetics, you understand that. Inspired by the vernacular, we are hugely influenced by the local contextual, and that's about the whole idea of the local, and the last one, efficient ideas at effective cost. Now, I won't give much explanation about any of these houses, I'll just run through. This is a house designed in the traditional concept of local South Canara, coastal Karnataka kind of a house. The Mukhamantapam, simple massing and volume, very simple way of designing. But inside, and it has a courtyard inside, and you can see a little hollow clay block, stone, a combination of stone and hollow clay block, and mangrove tiles as such. There's another house which is again designed in a very vernacular style in Bengaluru. You can see stone, hollow clay block, verandas, traditional looking juggling. There's a courtyard inside, Angala as we call on the outside, in the back side. You can see the way the skyline is formed by things going up and down. That's another vernacular style house in Bengaluru we have done. You can see traditional veranda, but little contemporary. There's a screen wall, for example. Of apartments we did, villas we did, where no two houses look alike. There's a rural school bringing in the character of the local fluid, a very fluid and flowing kind of a character, large arches. This building has got very large filler slab roofs, very long span arches. That's another farmhouse done in the shape of a, you can already see a little contemporary thing coming about. It's two-way curved rammed earth wall and two-way curved hurdy roof. And both of them are very unique ideas which we introduced in those days. And even the roof is something very unusual, very, very unusual. The whole building has a lot of innovativeness about it. So it's not that we want to do only in vernacular. When somebody asks us to do, Satya, do something which nobody has done, we are willing. But where does it come from is a challenge. You know, this nobody has done. But then it comes from the local roots, clay roof, mud wall, rammed earth wall. That's a house with a little contemporary touch, but using traditional elements, nature, materials. It's in Punjab, in Ludhiana, wherein we could not get our local materials. But then what do you do? So you still make use of the principles of designing with nature. So staggered wall, shadow elements, inside there's an oval-shaped court, and it's a corporate building. So they wanted some little corporate image to be brought into the whole building itself. There's an open-air theatre in Melukote. The open-air theatre had to be merging with the medieval historic context. And so we kept it very neutral, very minimal, and back into natural materials, which is our main strength. That's a COB wall. The thicker wall below is COB wall. Upper wall happening is the wattle and daub wall. You can see the bamboo mat. and the rattle and daub work happening around. This is the way we took, something. I mean, I'm asking this, I'm showing someone's also to answer. How do you look at vernacular elements or something, as a question was there. These are the kind of standard stone slab steps you see in open wells in villages. We took it and made it grand and classic for a house in Bangalore. The spotted ceiling, right side is a colored colored earth used for rammed earth. There is a catenary roof, catenary arch. The support is still there. Catenary arch, and there is a jali wall. This is the entrance to a small little Montessori school in Salem. The house interior, all natural material, natural light, natural air, everything natural, natural, natural. Again, all natural, you can see. So, again, natural, natural materials, and no fancy elevations. We don't work on fancy elevations. Our elevations are very simple. We work with the material, texture, color, porosity, surfaces, projected plane, recessed plane, massing, etc., etc. to create. That's what I was talking earlier about theory of architecture, to create the elevations. This inside of a farmhouse, you can see the open riser staircase and curved wall on the right hand side with the curved staircase, skylight. The whole idea is to know within what we are doing, we are trying to do something interesting. That's an indoor court in a house. Living room on the right hand side, left side is a courtyard. It has a sliding folding door. We have been using sliding folding doors now, I think, for about 20 years. So we create phenomenal connectivity between inside and outside of the house. The entrance to a house, you can see the veranda or tinai or whatever people may call it as. The sitting area there, perforated roof, bricks, stone. See, if we can enter a house with this kind of a sense of entry, immediately the mind opens up. The mind cools down. We say wow at it. If somebody has to say wow, they can say wow. Or if it is to cool the mind, it is to cool the mind. That's the Montessori school in Salem. So horseshoe arches, jali walls, yes-shaped curved holy roof with skylights, rat trap bond. It also has a rat trap bond on the left side. The left side, white walls are all rat trap walls. And that's a terrace pavilion. I owe it to the owner. Actually, he did more work on this than we did really. In a rammed earth column, half vaulted, perforated, clay roof, water body, etc., of course, is there. And that's the last slide. So when we say, slide for this part. So when we say we are designing eco-friendly buildings, I don't want to say that eco-friendly building will change the whole world. No, a natural building will not change the whole world. We got to become eco-friendly people. We got to become natural people. And if we don't become natural people, if we don't become eco-friendly people, there's no point in just using mud or clay or stone, whatever, because we as people are not natural. Now, something to be remembered there is that all of us as people are basically a product of nature. And that's the most important thing to look at. And unless we realize that we are part of nature and we contribute to nature, and when we do that, then we will know how we can live with nature, for nature, in nature, etc. So in architecture, we try. I'm not saying there's a big success story. We try as much as we can. Pranoti, that's the end of the last part as well. And in your experience, please do, because once this session is over, we'll be closing it. But I'm very happy to know that, we thought 1 hour, 1.5 hours are still going on. And that's amazing. And when we ask people to log in for second time, we still got 70 people plus logging in. So it shows there are people with interest. And that is a hope for society in future. That's how I would look at it. Okay, Pranati.
Yeah. So I will go through one by one.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a question by Ritika. She's asking, as a fresher, I have noticed that many of, in general, they don't know what we do as architect, the common people. So how do you suggest to spread the awareness among people about our field?
Everybody has to work on it. I got a chance 10 years ago to write a weekly column for the newspaper Hindu. Now, there are about 400 essays I could write on that pretext. From there, it goes to a blog spot. So the blog spot today has more than 4 lakh hits. See, now it shows that people are interested in knowing what architects can contribute, what ideas we can share, etc. We are not reaching out adequately to people. This is a common thing every one of us saying. Most of us as architects promote ourselves. We will have a website. We will have Instagram page. We will have Facebook. We'll be in LinkedIn. We'll do everything. And everywhere we promote us. I'm not against it, but we need to promote architecture, not architects. Most architects promote themselves, including me maybe. I don't know. I'm saying it very humbly when I'm saying it. Maybe I'm also promoting myself. I don't know. But if you don't promote architecture, people will not know our worth. And this 4 lakhs plus hit, it must be 4 lakhs 10,000. I don't know the latest now for my blog spot. It's all available. If you people type my name and all, it comes in Google. So if there are people looking for information, we should give it. We should create an awareness. Now, somebody may do it in the neighborhood group. For example, some of you are in a WhatsApp group with your relatives. How often? Simple question I'm asking. Yeah, most of us architects who are in some WhatsApp group, how often we have created an awareness about architecture within our WhatsApp group? If I ask this question, the majority will say we have hardly done. Either we feel awkward, how can I tell my uncle what architecture is? But if I tell my uncle what architecture is, uncle will tell his colleague and she will go to an architect and get a better building done. So we don't really take that step going out. We don't really are taking the step to go out and tell people. That's my only one concern. There are more concerns, but that is not for discussion today.
Okay, so there's another question by Rahul. So what's your opinion on the new concept of social distancing affecting the architecture field or profession, and how important is it to understand the human behavior?
Ritika, who asked this question?
Rahul.
Human behavior and all?
Rahul.
Is a student? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But very interesting question. See, a lot of people are talking about how Corona would affect architecture, but I've also been asked this question on 2-3 occasions, but I'm just trying to avoid answering. It's very difficult to say anything. We are in a very unpredictable scenario. So let me not predict anything. But how does it affect human behavior? I would say it's going to be, in case if Corona goes away, if the COVID-19 is under control, it will be a short-lived phenomenon. Because human beings innately are biological. We seek company. We seek people. Of course, though I was questioning the new social thing happening around, where we don't deal with people, we don't talk to people, we only look at our Google map. For everything, we only go to internet as reference. In our days, Pranot, you remember, no? We would ask each other, word of mouth, as we say. That word of mouth is going now. Everybody goes into internet. But anyway, back to this. So that way, to some extent, human behavior itself is changing a lot. I don't think it's so much because of Corona, but more because of the new internet software, millennium technique based on. We hardly talk to anyone. We go out to the street, and e-commerce has worsened it. We hardly talk to anybody. So I would rather look at that as a more worrisome thing than the Corona issue at the moment.
So I think that answers the similar question by Siddharth. He has also asked the same thing, influence of social distancing in future.
Yeah, similar thing then.
Yeah. So there's one more question. Diplomacy of architects and construction workers have been increasing tremendously throughout the globe. So why?
Diplomacy, D-I-P-L-O?
M-A-C-Y.
Diplomacy of architecture.
Diplomacy of architects and construction workers have increased tremendously throughout the globe. Why?
Can you please ask them to clarify? I don't understand the word diplomacy of
please.
architects.
Who has asked this question? They can come forward and.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Now I have also kept the chat box open. Now I can also read it here if anybody asks. Maybe you can go to next question in the meanwhile, if there is any.
Okay, yeah. So, Dhriti is asking, sir, what is the scope of analytical thinking in architecture?
You are asking a wrong question because it has only one answer. There's nothing like no analytical thinking possible. You know what? If I have to be a good student, I have realized one thing over the many years of being whatever I have been, and also have been in a faculty. Academics is important. Syllabus is important, but the self is more important. Whether it is sustainability or whether it is learning architecture. Even in sustainability, I've been saying now for a couple of years, I am causing climate change. There's no point blaming MNCs, governments, policies, in Amazon.com. Why is Amazon.com surviving? Because I am buying from them. If I stop buying, what will Amazon do? Close shop. Why are there manufacturing happening? Why are people making products? Because there is a taker. If there is no maker, if there is no taker, there is no maker. It's very simple, no? Same thing here also. Now, where do such ideas come from? All these ideas will come from the fact that we analyze. And for that matter, most of architecture learning, I'm repeating this word, most of architecture learning comes from analysis and not from the routine academics. Please, I don't want people in academics to mistake me for saying it, because academic today is controlled a lot by curriculum, timings, internal tests, this, finish the syllabus, teachers under huge. I know the kind of pressure teachers go through to finish the course planning, then give improvement tests, evaluate, put the marks, and manage life in the meanwhile along with that. Teacher job is no, please, if any of you think teachers are having happy time, it's not really the case. Well, departmental works, odd jobs around, organize webinars like what Kirti is ending up doing and Pranoti is ending up sitting and doing it. So, but when I'm saying academic also teaches architecture a lot. However, the truer, deeper understanding of architecture can come to us. The true learning of architecture can come to us by analysis. Academics will help. But if we don't analyze, academics will be of no help. If by nature as a student, if I am not analytical, whatever the academics do, whatever the staff do, whatever the college does, it will all be waste of time. But if I am good in analysis, if I'm good in thinking, if I'm good in observation, if I'm good in introspection, maybe I can, the combination of both will make it fantastic for everybody. I'm done. Yes, next.
Yeah, so we have two more questions, sir. So the one is, what is your advice for the upcoming students in the aspect of design and how to face the new challenges?
Well, the new challenges have become very unpredictable challenges. I'm surprised to see 80 people still in this. So, and is approaching, how long we have already spent?
We started at
Almost 2 hours, sir.
2 hours,
2
sir.
hours, sir.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah, minus few minutes here and there. Good to see so many people still here. Now, let me start with our new challenges. Challenges were there always, even in my time. The difference was, during my time, architecture was not as saturated as it was today. So there were great opportunities for all of us to go out and get a job. I was a rather bad student, as I said, and bad architect, young architect. But even though I was comparatively bad, I had opportunities, because opportunities were there in billions. Today, the reverse has taken place. Today, the field has become competitive. So if I were to have been today around, I don't think I could have survived. But today, the challenge is different. While opportunities have increased in terms of competition, all of them, the good have great opportunities today. A lot of opportunity for the good. So just be good in whatever you are doing. There's a adage which you would have heard. There's always space in the top. It could be Himalaya, it could be the Vindhyashreni, it could be little hillock behind our own house. Every peak has a top, no. So there's always a place in the top. Need not be only Himalaya. Even the hillock behind also has a top. So just be good and life society will take you. Secondly, architects are needed. So it's not like saying that, our whole profession will one day vanish away. No, it doesn't happen. It never happened that way. So there is a demand for architects that will always be there. The temporary problem has been too many students passing out. The market has not picked up in a big way. And some of the recent years, whatever happened, demonetization, GST, lot of the policies have affected the urban economy. It has helped ecology in a way, but economy has not. So they all have given the reason, and that's why there is a tension right now. But I think it will not last too long. So the good will always have a lasting chance. Yes, next, please.
Yeah, sir, I think we can take up just one or two more. One more question by Suman. He is asking, he would like to know the reliable tools for simulation software for optimizing the building design and improving the indoor environmental quality, and how to reduce energy consumption. Tools
When
for
I passed out,
software. Tools for simulation software.
When I passed out of architecture, just around that time, about to pass, I got a chance to work with Shankar Kanade, one of my mentors. And there was no simulation software at that time. But Shankar Kanade's brain was such, he could imagine better than a 3D Studio Max Studio program. He could imagine better than a SketchUp program. So the best simulation program is here inside.
It's our brain.
It's inside our brain. And the moment we outsource it to another so-called simulation software, the moment we outsource it, I'm again using the word outsource, the moment we outsource it to a technology-enabled, whatever platform, ICT, OTT, whatever platform you talk about, the brain starts to rust. We will not be giving enough exercise for the brain. And if the brain cannot think, however good external simulation software is, you will still be an average designer. Because this is the final thing. This is at end of the day, the brain. So the best simulation software is within you. And indoor environment quality. Indoor quality. Let us look at ourselves. What is inside us? If I'm a good human being, a client will like me. And the possibility of a client accepting our ideas are greater. If I'm not a good human being, if I'm irritated, if I'm egoistic, if I'm argumentative, if I'm opinionated, if I'm not a good team worker, if I hold on to my hegemonies, if I hold on to my aggression, if I hold on to my animosities, if I hold on to whatever, I'm not a good human being, it becomes more difficult to convince a client. Simple. Or to convince a teacher. Or to convince anybody. What we need is not convincing. Between the word communication and convincing, communication is important. Our role is to communicate. We can't convince, but we can communicate. Communication is is inside us. Getting convinced is theirs. I can't do much about it. They may or they may not, philosophically speaking, but I can communicate. If I can communicate well, as an honest human being, with all the words I just now used, then more often they get convinced. So simulation and improving indoor, okay, inside ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes, I can also see one or two more.
Yeah. So she is asking, whether we are having virtual design studios in future.
Well, again, as I said earlier, it's difficult to predict what is going to happen. Personally, being from a different generation compared to anybody else around, maybe as in today's webinar, personally, I am not very comfortable. We are trying to do this. We are trying to do now client meetings. We are trying to discuss what we are doing in person in the office. We are trying to do online using Zoom or WebEx, and works of design, architecture, construction ideas have come during the days when there was no software. Software has come in only the last 20 years in a big way, or 30 years max, you can say. So what has happened in the last known 3,000, 5,000 years, even if you take 3,000 years. So even if you take only 3,000 years of human civilization, forget Egyptian, etc., or if you take 5,000. So if you look at the 5,000 years of history of architecture, what humans have achieved, we are yet to achieve in this so-called 30 years of software-based architecture. But someday we may. I'm not a pessimist. And if it does, well, of course, fine. Nothing wrong. So I am typing my email ID. This is my personal email ID. So sometimes, it gets flooded and I may not reply back. But if your questions or whatever you're sharing is provoking enough, I may reply back to you. Feel free. But being personal email ID, please use it with discretion. That's one request to all of you. And I believe we had my Pranoti, okay, I think Kirti told there's some 200 odd registrations. What was the number I was told?
272, sir, but somehow we could accommodate everybody.
Yeah, so sorry for all those who couldn't come in. But anyway, I heard you people talking when I was just
Hello.
going offline. It will go to everybody, I hope. So all the people can. I'm also requesting you, Pranoti, share with me all those 273 email IDs which you got. So that
Definitely,
if
sir.
need be, I'll also. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, sure, sir.
We'll send it to you, sir.
Yeah, please share the
Sir,
recorded
one
link
last.
and the IDs with me, please.
Yeah. Who's this?
And thank you for the opportunity you have given me to share my experiences.
Yeah.
And it could be of use to somebody. I hope so. But someday I may expect all the 273 people to be able to present a webinar sharing their life journey like this and help the next generation.
So thank you so much.
Ma'am, I have one last question.
Yeah, who's this? Can you just
Suman here, ma'am.
okay? Yeah. Can you be short?
Yes, ma'am. I'm working on a project about archaeochemistry.
Okay.
Question just for
If what you're asking is provoking enough, yes, I will be there with you. You should provoke me. I will be there.
Okay, sir. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think we need to conclude this session. Talk, discussion, and very interactive session, which included climate change, reducing our footprint, carbon footprint, and even reducing green miles. So I think our one of my colleagues, Jharna Dongre, she will formally conclude this session. Over to Jharna, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, sir. A big thank you to you, sir, for your honest approach towards the topic, which was entering architecture first year and beyond. Sir, that was indeed a great informative session on the topic, because that is like very closely related to each and everybody, students, teachers, and professionals. I also thank our most valued invited guests, my colleagues, and all dear students. On behalf of the Oxford School of Architecture, the entire team of students and teachers, we extend a very hearty thank you to Sir Satya Prakash sir for his thought-provoking session. Thank you for your time, sir. It was indeed very helping and very interactive for everybody, sir, to have a session at this time when people are not able to meet each other. And like we have also not met our students from so long. So it will indeed ignite that spark again, sir. Thank you so much. And at last, a big thank you to Pranoti ma'am and Kirti ma'am for everything, for organizing, for coordination, for all the emails, everything. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, thanks for giving me opportunity, and please share the feedbacks with me and see
Sure,
what I can
sir.
improve
Sure.
myself.
Definitely. Yeah.
Sure, sir.
With
Thank you
that,
so
all
much.
the best to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So we'll end.